Director of Transportation for the City of Tucson, and we'll go to my left.
Hi, I'm Dawn with PAG.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Carolyn Laurie. I'm with PAG.
Rick Ellis with PAG RTA.
Catherine Skinner with Pima County Transportation.
Paul Casertano with Pima County Transportation.
David Mitchell with PAG. Jamie Brown with PAG.
Anna Odin, PAG. Guys Ren, PAG.
Sonia Kelly with PAG.
Crystal, right?
Yes.
All right.
Crystal Spires.
And then online, I'm just gonna go down the list of people I have here, and I'll call on you. So we have Brianne, PAG.
Yep, I'm here.
All right, Jeff with PAG. All right, good. Davita.
Hi, Davita Mueller with Suntran.
Thanks, Davita. Gallo.
Morning, this is Nala with the town of Sarita.
Mark Hoffman.
Good morning, Mark Hoffman, ADOT Multimodal Planning.
Heidi.
Good morning, Heidi Lasham, Tana Marana, CIP Engineering Division Manager.
Thanks, Heidi. Mark Novak.
Mark Novak, University of Arizona.
Rod.
Good morning, everyone. Rod Lane with ADOT South Central District.
Thanks, Rod. David.
Hello, David Zinda with PAG.
Thanks, David. Let me go down the list here. James.
Good morning, James Tao, RTA Budget Coordinator.
Jose.
Good morning, Jose Rodriguez, Town of Ball Valley.
Thanks, Jose. Dan.
From the town of Marana.
It's really hard to hear you, Dan.
Dan Grossman from the town of Marana.
All right, thank you. Natalie.
Good morning, I'm Natalie Shep with the Pima County Department of Environmental Quality.
Thanks, Natalie. Patricia.
Good morning, Patricia Pablo with the Thana Autumn Nation.
Thank you, Patricia. Thomas.
Yeah, good morning. This is Thomas Garcia with the town of Sarita.
Great, thank you. And Josue.
Good morning, everybody. Josue Licea, City of South Tucson.
Great, thank you so much. Was there anybody that didn't call on online that didn't get a chance to introduce themselves? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item 2, in-kind reporting. Jeanette.
Hey.
Ren.
It's okay. Just go with the first name.
That's right.
Like Sherry,
Yeah.
can't go wrong. All right, regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. If you are paid with federal dollars, please let us know. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of the meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in the meeting. Time spent working on PAG RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. We did circulate the sign-in sheet. If you haven't signed it, please do so before you leave. That's all.
Thanks so much, Jeanette. We'll move on to item 3, approval of the October 18, 2023 meeting summary. Have you all had a chance to review? Were there any comments or questions? All right, I'm hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the meeting summary for October 18?
So move. This is Thomas Garcia.
Right, thanks, Thomas.
I'll second it.
All right. And Catherine seconded it. Any discussion or questions before we call the vote? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? I'm going to abstain because I wasn't here. All right, meeting minutes pass. We'll move on to item 4, fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2026, Transportation Improvement Program Amendment number 2022.080. Carolyn Laurie.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This morning, we'll be looking at a transportation improvement program amendment that we began during our Halloween all-day TIP subcommittee meeting. And during that meeting, we received a request by ADOT to move their updated construction program through the process. We did include the TIP amendment that was originally sent out with the packet. Since our original meeting, the packet and the agenda items were taken through the management committee. Management committee approved those items. If you can recall back to the subcommittee, one of the tasks that we were requested to work on with the city of Tucson was to take a look at the 22nd Street Bridge program and to see how that process was moving along with FHWA and with ADOT. Ms. Rain was able to coordinate a meeting for us, and we met with them on Thursday last week and had some conversations about where the project was, some possible design changes that we're going to be seeing, and timing that would take place for the grant agreement between FHWA and the city. After that meeting, there was a decision made by the city of Tucson and by PAG to talk about relocating the STBG funds that we talked about during that Halloween meeting. After that discussion, we reached out to ADOT and talked to them about the possibility of swapping funds with them to ensure that this money was saved for the region, that we kept it local. ADOT was gracious enough to meet with us and have that discussion, and Rod was willing to move some of those funds onto his project. A pretty important regional project for the region. That's I-10 Core Country Club Road and Keno intersections. After that, PAG worked pretty quickly with ADOT to create the amendment that's in front of you today. And with that, I'd like to walk you all through the amendment so we have some clarification. Okay, item A in the packet is tip number 131.00. This is 22nd Street, I-10 to Tucson Boulevard. In the existing approval table, you will see that there's $16,525,000 of STB slated for construction. Through that request that we had with the city and documents that we've received yesterday, we removed that funding and we reallocated it to a different project. So you'll see on the proposed request line that that funding has been removed. On the second page, we will review tip number 9.23, I-10 Country Club Road to Keno intersection. This is the second project that's associated with the swap. Originally, the funding was $15,337,000 less than it is today in your packet that you received. And that was the reprogramming of the STBG that was unobligated. And we also had to subtract out about $1,300,000 of regional STBG funds that were removed due to our population band change. So there's a decrease between the first two pages. We believe we discussed that with you all. I just wanted to make sure it was clear that the numbers would not match there. So we will have an updated total of $18,183,964,000. It's a big number. I also wanted to be sure that we noted that there's a correction on this page. The actual ASTP is $146,016,000. Okay. Then we move on to the final tip number that's associated with the swap. This is an RTA project, and it's tip number 87.06, Barraza Aviation Parkway expansion. In the updated tables that we shared out, if you look on the bottom right of 2026, you will see how we reallocated the funding here and included the match, which is the HERF dollars, And this total of 19,600,000 also meets the RTA obligation for this project. And with that, this is an amended action item, and I'd like to open the floor for any discussion.
I have a question, Chair. So you mentioned that management committee already approved the previous version of it. So procedurally, does this go back to management committee again, or will this just go to regional council at their next meeting?
Since we just completed the updated amendment, essentially Monday night, we're taking it through you, and we're going to provide an update to them, and so everyone's aware of the changes. But we are using a policy that allows us to go from TPC directly to regional council in December. So it's important for ADOT that these funds are allocated in time for them to meet their notice standards. Lane made sure that was clear to us, and we want to respect his request there. Any other questions?
Questions online?
Sam, I had one question. I was curious. It sounds like with your project that there's changes being made, or is that not the case? Is there design changes being made that would be different than what was voter approved, or this is just a delay in some of the processes you're dealing with that we need the swap?
Yeah, thanks. I think that was Heidi that was talking. Thanks for that question. So yes, there are some design changes going on, but they are more design tweaks. We're still delivering what was promised for the 22nd Street Bridge. It's really just some of the configuration of the connections between 22nd Street and Aviation, as well as the bicycle and pedestrian facilities. I think the biggest issue here is trying to obligate the raise grant in a time frame that aligns with the approval of the new TIP. And so in order for FHWA to authorize the raise grant funding, we have to show all the funding for the project in one approved TIP. It was unlikely that we were going to be able to do that and obligate these federal dollars in this fiscal year. So by finding a location for them, we're able to move them over to ADOT's project and then keep plugging away on 22nd Street.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a question. So what does it do to this project, the 22nd Street project? I know for a while we've been trying to get money into the project, but now we're actually taking money out. What does it do to the project as far as delivery?
So I know that when we met at the TIP subcommittee, we discussed fully funding 22nd Street through fiscal year 29. And so I think that is still the plan, is to try to find additional, the combination of federal funds and regional HERB, mostly federal funds because the project's already federalized. So I think that's still the plan, Jose. There was just, with everything going on, there was very little chance that we were going to be able to obligate those federal funds this fiscal year.
So the fund is still necessary. It's just it's a timing issue, basically.
It is a timing issue, and I'll just mention too that we haven't even had the conversation yet about RTA dollars on that project. So there is still that possibility down the road.
Well, thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Jose. Any others? Oh, I'm sorry, Jamie, you did have your hand up. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, just want to comment to thank ADOT for their coordination on this as well, because this was done with little time, realizing I think this is really our only option to ensure that we don't lose these funds to the region. And thank you, City of Tucson, also for providing a formal request letter to us for this. Appreciate the support from the committee as well. Again, acknowledging that we don't want to lose these funds to the region, but special thanks to ADOT for coordinating this.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. I will echo those thanks to ADOT, and I think that what this process, while it was pretty last minute, we kind of threw this together pretty quickly. showed that when we all got together, we could sit down and figure out a problem and find a solution that works for everybody. So thank you to everyone that participated in the TIP subcommittee, and a special thanks to ADOT and the PAG staff for getting this done so quickly.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else before we ask for action on this item?
Yeah, this is Rod.
Go ahead, Rod.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad we could help PAG and the city figure out a way to retain this funding within the PAG region. I think that's a vital role of all of us as jurisdictional members. So I'm glad that we were able to help in that process. I would like to point out that ADOT fully intends to, deliver this $500 million project to the region. It's a vital effort, and we need to keep that ball moving forward as well. Our intent is to start accessing this construction funding in the first or second month of next year. So we really need to keep this Keno Country Club project moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. All right, hearing no other questions or comments, this is an action item. So if I could have a motion to approve the TIP amendment as presented.
This is Mark Hoffman. I'll make a motion to approve TIP Amendment 080 with the noted correction to item B.
Great, thank you so much, Mark. Is there a second?
This is Nalo with the town of Sahuarita. I'd like to second that.
I'm sorry, there was a couple folks talking at the same time. Who seconded?
I'm sorry, this is Nalo with the town of Sahuarita. I'd like to second the motion.
All right, thank you so much. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your work on this, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, we will move on to item 5, updates on the Transportation Improvement Program TIP development process. Jamie Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I know this is something that's been requested for an agenda item for TPC. Some of this information has been shared with the TIP subcommittee. It was also shared with the management committee, so I apologize if there's any repeat. I may just cover some information briefly if it is something. So, for example, we did share this slide with the management committee of key points that we've been sharing with our committees over the past year, because this is an unusual TIP development process. And of course, that first bullet point is really the key issue here, is that this is the first TIP that includes the program years beyond the sunset of the current RTA plan. And I guess I'll just skip to the bottom because I think I'm covering these other bullets later on, that until a new TIP is adopted, we will continue to amend the current TIP as needed. Happy to cover any of these in more detail, but a lot of this information was shared previously. I also just want to orient the TPC to a memo that was shared with the TIP subcommittee in late March, providing next steps in the TIP development process, given the direction that was provided by the regional council at the March meeting. So what were the next steps that were identified? You can see them listed here. The first one is just acknowledging that there's more time to complete the TIP. We have, per the federal requirements or regulations, I should say, we have to update the TIP once every 4 years. So really, ultimate deadline is May of 2025. We actually are working to our intent to bring forward a new TIP in May of 2024. So in terms of working with the TIP subcommittee, the first step is to identify those RTA roadway element projects that could be federalized with the programming of the SDBG dollars, followed by the programming of the HERF 12.6 dollars, which are more flexible. And then in terms of RTA funding, as we've stated, the RTA board will program supplemental RTA excise tax dollars on projects that are construction ready on a pay-as-you-go basis. Again, those were the points that were described in that memo from March. And trying to bring everybody up to speed because time has passed. And during that time, ag staff and committees have been busy. So back in April, we did send out a request to our member agencies to identify candidate projects to federalize. And thank you, Pima County, for responding to that, identifying a potential candidate project as the county's First Avenue project, federal law. So we've been incorporating the federal dollars into the process for Pima County's First Avenue project, which is a deferred project as well. We've also held meetings with ADOT staff to discuss forecasting changes to federal funding, including the greater than 200,000 population and SDBGs. Shared with the TIP subcommittee in great detail because of rebalancing associated with the 2020 census and those urban areas, those large urban areas in our state. The MAG region is growing at a faster pace. And so to rebalance those dollars, they're getting a greater share than the PAG region. So Carolyn alluded to this during the TIP amendment that was just passed, that we actually have less SDBG dollars funding to work with in FY24 and going forward. So that was a reduction of, I think you said 1.2 million, and thereabouts for subsequent years as well. So that's informing our programming process, but it's an important adjustment that everybody should be aware of. We've also, in coordination with member agencies, conducted the annual fiscal year rollover process, in this case from FY23 to 24 for HERF 12.6 RT and local funds. So thanks everyone for your participation in that. That again informs the TIP development process to see how much funding is given. Based on that, we updated the RTA roadway on that worksheet and brought that to TIP subcommittee. The 2 meetings that we've held so far, we had an almost all-day meeting on October 31st, following the September meetings. Thanks to all the TIP subcommittee members for all of your time on that. We also provided an update last week. Process. One of the slides I shared with the management committee is this one here. With just 2.5 years left before the 2006 voter-approved RTA excise tax revenue collections conclude, it is the statutory duty of the RTA to ensure that any remaining projects which have not yet initiated the project phase commence construction before July 1st, 2026. Projects that have either initiated a phase or completed a previous phase or phases may proceed with the remaining phase or phases beyond fiscal year 26, utilizing any regional funds available. As we review and update the funding priorities for fiscal years 24 through 26, the following projects that are consistent with the voter-approved plan therefore take precedence. And you can see those listed on your screen: Roslyn Beach Parkway Extension, Muncie Road I-19 Alvernon, Muncie Road Cold Road to Houghton Road, 22nd Street Community Secret Houghton Road, and Harrison Road Irvington Road to Golf Links. And as a reminder about deferred projects and local funding commitments, RTA deferred projects are scope change projects and require voter approval as previously determined by the RTA board. Just one more slide here. Additional updates and next steps. So the TIP subcommittee is aware of this, but one of the key decisions that has been made is to adjust the fiscal years to include fiscal year 2029 as part of the next TIP. So the new TIP will now be fiscal years 25 through 29. Back in the spring, we were keeping options open to perhaps bring forward the 24 through 28 prior to May of 2024. Of course, at this point, it's really the most realistic. And so it makes sense at this point, because fiscal year 24 will be almost over by late May, to include fiscal years 25 through 29. And that also helps keep us on a biennial update cycle. So what does that mean in terms of amendments and next project list? So for fiscal years 24 through 26, recommendations will be processed as TIP amendments to the current TIP. Fiscal years 27 through 29 recommendations will be included in the draft TIP project list to be adopted during the TIP cycle. In terms of next steps, we need to work with our partners to help with various lists like Tucson Airport Authority, with ADOT. The Transit Working Group is updating their list. And of course, the TIP subcommittee is still at work with the RTA roadway element project list. The TIP amendment that was just approved does help greatly in terms of that list. So we'll finalize those draft project lists. That will help us to commence the technical analysis. That includes the travel demand modeling, GIS mapping, Title VI analysis, air quality conformity analysis, performance assessment development, and more. So just I'm listing all those things so that you know there's a lot to do. And so we need to keep the process moving. That allows us to complete the draft TIP and initiate public involvement for TIP open houses in the spring, followed by a 30-day public comment period to request final approval in May. And I think everyone is hearing about the critical importance of having an approved TIP ADOT's projects, for the city's projects. That I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Questions for Jamie? I have a couple. You could scroll back one slide. On that timeline, Jamie, I guess, knowing that the final approval's in May, I assume that's to regional council, kind of backing that out. Do you have some critical dates that this committee or the TIP subcommittee really need to be focused and engaged to make sure that deadline?
We do. I can provide that at a future meeting. I mean, I can tell you right now that typically in the April TPC meeting is when we request approval of the final draft TIP. And the next day we commence the 30-day public comment period. In March, we try to hold the open houses so that that's when we get sort of the major feedback, right? And helps us to make adjustments so that we can prepare a final draft. During the last TIP development cycle, we had to compress that and hold the TIP open houses during the 30-day comment period, which is not ideal. So, and then backing up from that, we hope to have all the analysis completed in February so we can have the final, the components for the draft TIP ready, potentially for the TIP open houses if we're ready. So keep in mind that not all TIP cycles have required that we've had a full draft TIP for the open houses. Sometimes, and I'll let others chime in, others familiar with this. Sometimes we've just had the project lists, the maps, and an executive summary. If we didn't have everything ready, we would just assume. If we can have a full draft TIP for the TIP open houses, we'd like to have that. But I can bring forward at future meetings some of those key details, some monthly milestones to do.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jamie. And then if you flip back maybe one more slide. This slide talks about commencing construction of a phase before July 1st, 2026. That, I guess, can you expand on that? Because
thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm wondering if Rick Ellis would like to respond to that one. So
memorize, so just chapter and section.
And I'm happy
yeah, I was gonna say, in complying with the ballot requirements of this, we had different periods that all the projects had to start construction on. So as it was laid out in the ballot, it called out periods 1, 2, 3, 4. We're wanting to make sure, and we were sharing the same thing with the CART committee yesterday as well, that the construction ready projects, those get priority emphasis. Those are first in line, maximize the opportunity before the continuing escalation of prices affects those jobs too much. And then these are the remaining jobs as well that have to start some sort of construction activity before June 30, 2026. So as it's listed in the RTA ballot, projects like Houghton and Grant have been broken into multiple phases for delivery purposes. Those now have met ballot compliance with future stages having the flexibility. Those can go to the back of the line. It's these that right now haven't had that action, need to ensure that we get a construction activity started before that deadline.
2 follow-up questions on that, Rick.
Okay.
And obviously I don't expect you to have this on the top of your head. So maybe you could share where in either the code or it actually spells out commencing construction. Then the follow-up question to that, what defines construction? I mean, is that a contract in place and getting ready to turn dirt? Is it actually turning dirt, pre-construction? What defines commencing construction?
So,
boy,
I was going to say the first one I can't answer. I don't know where that's embedded in either the code or the legislation on it. So that would take some research to follow into. The second one, what I had to live with and working with Paul and Catherine at the county, obviously, and what the other jurisdictions have done, we've defined construction following the typical protocol of the jurisdictions, notice to proceed with contractor.
Okay.
So that's what we rely on. We try to use the same vernacular, notice to proceed, substantial completions, project closeouts. We try to mirror that as well.
Okay, that's helpful. And I would say in the context of this discussion, the reason I'm asking these questions is as we're looking at a TIP through 29, we obviously need to program dollars for actual construction dollars.
That would be commensurate with that, correct? And I believe that was a lot of the discussion going on at the 31st all-day session as well.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, maybe just to add to your question, and we can confirm if this is incorrect in terms of the statutory language with regard to the construction start. In the statutes, section 48-5314, A, the board shall, 1, adopt a 20-year comprehensive multimodal regional transportation plan consistent with the requirements of this article, including transportation corridors by priority, and a schedule indicating the dates that construction will begin for projects contained in the plan. Now, if that's the incorrect listing, if there's more, we can provide that, but I wanted to share that with you. This is from the statute.
Helpful. And then just my last comment or question, Jamie, is maybe you could provide that memo from March again. Since some time has passed, probably wouldn't be a bad idea to just refresh our memories.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
if I could add, I mean, I think, you know, your questions point to all the complexities we're dealing with this tip cycle, which I know we've been saying over and over. So I want to point out a few things that I think are going to be important for us to keep in mind is we're making these funding changes as tip amendments to 24 to 26. And in the case of 22nd, we talked about taking money off. You know, I'm not sure how we're tracking, besides that we have all the public, you know, meeting notes and comments, but those funds need to reappear then in the subsequent one. And so I feel like there's the potential that we're going to be collecting a list of these little, we changed it in the amendment, we need to carry it forward. That was some of the complications of the TIP meeting as well. Like how do we want to show it? Because there's a bit of a misalignment. And then the other complexity in terms of that July 1, 2026 construction start date is the county's First Avenue project has a question up in the air, I'll say, in terms of scope. What's been proposed for RTA next is a 3-lane section. What's in the current RTA plan is a 4-lane section. So, you know, it's maybe going to be a little bit late if we have to wait until election results in spring of 25, and we think we're going to use federal money for the project. You know, if RTA next were to fail, we wouldn't be able to get a construction project ready for authorization in 12 months. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to start a design if we don't know the scope we're allowed to move forward with. So I don't know if this is a project that it would make sense to start the conversation with the RTA board, whether this scope modification is something that they can approve, or if it is truly something we have to wait until the voters take action on.
We've had a lot of that same discussion internally as well and continue to look at those nuances. First Avenue North does have some wrinkles, and you hit upon it correctly, that need to be massaged, looked into, research to ensure that we get the proper packaging, compartmentalizing of that. So it's on our hot list for discussion in that investigation as well, to make sure that however that lies out is going to meet the delivery requirements here in Tim. Yeah, that's at the top of our must pay attention to list.
Do you have any, I'm sorry, you got that.
I was just going to say, you know, echo what you said before. I think with these complexities, having that TIP subcommittee, I mean, it doesn't have to be a full day meeting, but I think that body having a little bit more of the conversation of the details of projects really led the way to a great solution with the TIP amendment, which we just approved. But we'll likely encounter a lot of these situations in the coming years as we're trying to, you know, keep the clock and be efficient with our funding. So that's just.
What I was just going to ask is is the county's First Avenue project the only of the 4 deferred that doesn't have a phase started? Because the other.
Yeah, Houghton, 22nd, and Silverbell all have had the period compliance or the project requirements met.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for your comments. We'll be watching those tables, make sure that we're tracking the funds. We did something similar last spring where we were bringing forward large amendments, but also a project list, and we had to make sure that the entries were identical. So we'll be tracking that, but appreciate your concern and extra sets of eyes. Hopefully we don't have to rely on them, but do appreciate your review. With regard to the TIP subcommittee, thank you so much for your comment and everybody's time again. We are actually looking at another meeting date for the end of this month. I think we're going to be sending out a save the date for that, Berlin. So I think they'll be coming maybe even today or tomorrow.
That's correct. Be sharing something later.
Great, that answered my last question. Appreciate that. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, I know, just to be clear, I guess. So we've discussed it at the TIP subcommittee, and now we're kind of hearing it at the CART level as well. That the projections are such that the anticipation is there will be enough RTA revenues to cover that $161 million shortfall that we're showing on the spreadsheet of many colors. And so that is not something that the public will see in the adopted TIP in May, is what we're hearing at this point. Is that correct? So you mentioned substantial amendments. We're going to see amendments that will make up that 161 million, or a combination of that and the next TIP cycle will make up, because the plan at this point is to not program out the full 5 years with all funding sources, but to just program on a case-by-case basis.
That is correct. That's my understanding at this time. Thank you.
I just want to make sure that we're all kind of clear that we will see hopefully an adopted TIP, but there will be a substantial part of that TIP that will not yet be laid out.
Any other questions or comments on this item? This is not an action item, it's just information only. And Jamie, that was the end of your presentation.
Yes, thank you.
I don't see any comments from the folks online. So then we will move on to item 6, Regional Transportation Revenues Update. James Tao. James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the TPC. Before I begin, I would like to thank David Zinda, our Economic and Financial Planning Manager, for the detailed work on this report. In our previous revenues report, I explained how we combine the memo and the revenues report while including several other funding sources beyond HERF. Keep in mind that this report looks specifically at roadway funding and, for the most part, what PAG administers. If we look at Table 3 and Figure 1 through September, there was just shy of $45 million in HERF and VLT collected across the region. Of that nearly 45 million, PAG collected about 9.2 million, or 20% of that regional funding. The remainder was distributed directly to Pima County, cities of Tucson and South Tucson, and the towns of Marana, Oro Valley, and Sahuarita. Regional HERF revenues were almost 5.5% year over year. Over the 5-year average, we stand at about 9.5%. Table 4 shows HERF 12.6 in detail. So far, we have 7.6 million in the books, which is about 11.4% more than implied by the ADOT official forecast, and about 9% stronger than last year. Table 5 shows HERF 2.6 with stronger than expected collections totaling about $1.6 million year to date, which is 13% stronger than last year. And Table 6, currently PAG has just over 77 million in an interest-bearing account. Most of these dollars are spoken for. In Table 7, we look at the city and town HERF distributions year to date. Table 8 shows the HERF 12.6 and 2.6 we've already seen. Additionally, we have Pima County HERF and Pima County Vehicle License Tax, the portion set aside for transportation use only. And Table 9 shows the previous 5 years and lets you see how much HERF your city or town received. Table 10 shows us gallons of gas sold in Pima County through various fiscal years. We normally like to see about 13%, so nothing unusual or of interest there. We are currently just under 13% for the current fiscal year. And in Table 11, we see about $40.5 million collected in TPT this year, trending for more than 5% gain over the adopted budget. That also mimics the percent rise over last year's actuals, also over 5%. Mr. Chair, that concludes my update. Happy to take questions.
Thanks, James. Any questions for James on this item? Fine. I have no questions. Thank you very much, James. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item 7, Regional Mobility and Accessibility Plan, RMAP update. Hannah Oden. Hannah?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, committee members. My name is Hannah Oden. I'm a planning coordinator at PAG. I'm just going to kind of give a brief update on where we are, the 2055 RMAP, specifically the working groups that we're forming. So based on the direction from the last meeting, we are forming working groups to discuss both the performance measures and the project list for the 2055 RMAP. To send out a doodle poll, thank you to everyone who filled that out. We are targeting the last week of this month for a meeting. It will be hybrid, so just keep an eye out for a formal invitation. I'm confirming that date and time. Think about who you want on that working group if you haven't thought about that already. It doesn't necessarily have to be a formal representative of TPC. It can be anyone from your agency. So we have been working with our own transit team as well as Tucson Transit to update the transit project list. So this includes updating the cost estimates, scope, and duplicates. For that working group meeting, we will have lists for discussion when we meet, so that we can have a targeted and productive conversation about the performance measures and the project list. So before the meeting, regarding the project list, we just ask that whoever is serving on that working group, just review the project list from your agency, including those projects that are in reserve and those that are categorized as multiple sponsor projects. Other than that, performance measures are being uploaded into the RMAP Project Explorer for new projects, so that data will be available. I believe Mr. Ern had additional updates to share as well.
Yeah, no, thank you, Hannah, and members of the TPC. Just one other follow-up point. We had brought the SunCloud Acopia presentation to this committee a few months back, and just wanted to give you guys a heads up that we are looking to incorporate that data into this process. So we're in the midst of that. We are bringing on a new staff member next week, and so hopefully we can continue to incorporate that and bring it to this committee. So as we have more information on how exactly we're going to do that, we'll bring it and probably reach out to some of you individually to look at our approach as well. So stay tuned, and it hasn't fallen off our radar. We're going to continue to work towards that. So Hannah, did you have anything else?
No, that's it for me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the update. Any questions for Hannah on this item? All right, so if you haven't done so, make sure that you appoint your people to the working group. I know we have our folks filled out the doodle poll, and look forward to hearing more on this process. With that, we'll move to item 8, future agenda items. Did anyone have any future agenda items that we haven't previously discussed? I will just say that we are targeting either a December or January item for the Justice 40 tool. That we haven't lost track of that one. So I know that one's come up in the past. I want to make sure we don't lose track of that. Were there other items you all would like to see on the future agenda? Anyone online?
Chair, I believe there's been some movement with the pavement management program. That might be helpful to bring that back around through TPC. I haven't seen a meeting of the pavement task force in a while, so it's a bit unclear what the status of that is.
Okay, great. Are we going to have a December TPC meeting as of right now?
As of right now, yes.
Okay, all right, great. So I heard pavement management update. We'll follow up on the Justice 40 tool. Any others? All right, hearing none, we stand adjourned at 9:45. Thanks, everyone. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.